Welcome to this transformative journey into the sacred language of body wisdom, where ancient Buddhist teachings illuminate the profound connection between mind, body, and spirit. In the quiet halls where Zen masters have walked for centuries, a timeless understanding has been preserved about the miraculous intelligence that flows through every cell of our being. This wisdom speaks to us not through complicated theories or abstract concepts, but through the direct experience of our own embodied existence. The body, in Buddhist understanding, is not merely a vessel that carries us through life, but rather a sacred temple of awareness, a living mandala where consciousness expresses itself in countless ways. Every sensation, every breath, every heartbeat becomes a teacher when we learn to listen with the ears of wisdom. The Zen masters understood that true healing begins not with fighting against our physical experience, but with developing a profound intimacy with the language our bodies speak continuously. This ancient wisdom recognizes that within each moment of physical existence lies an invitation to deeper understanding. When we place our hand upon our chest and feel the steady rhythm of our heart, we are touching something far more profound than a muscular organ pumping blood. We are connecting with the very pulse of life itself, the same rhythm that moves through the tides, the seasons, and the cosmic dance of stars across the heavens. The Zen masters taught that this recognition of our intimate connection to the larger patterns of existence forms the foundation for all genuine healing. In this exploration, we will discover how the ancient Buddhist perspective on the mind-body connection offers us a revolutionary approach to understanding our physical existence. Rather than seeing the body as separate from the mind, or as something to be conquered or controlled, we learn to recognize the seamless unity that has always existed between our mental and physical experiences. This recognition becomes the foundation for a healing journey that honors both the wisdom of ancient traditions and the needs of our modern lives. The Zen masters observed that most human suffering arises from what they called the great forgetting, our tendency to lose touch with the natural unity that characterizes our deepest nature. When we forget that our thoughts and emotions are intimately woven through every cell of our being, we create artificial divisions that manifest as stress, tension, and dis-ease. However, when we remember this fundamental connection and learn to live from this remembering, we discover that healing becomes not something we must struggle to achieve, but something that naturally unfolds when we align ourselves with the wisdom that is already present within us. The Zen masters taught that every moment of physical experience, whether comfortable or challenging, pleasant or difficult, carries within it the seeds of awakening. When we approach our bodies with this understanding, we begin to see that what we often label as problems or obstacles are actually invitations to deepen our awareness and expand our capacity for presence. This shift in perspective transforms our entire relationship with physical existence, opening doorways to healing that we may never have imagined possible. Consider the simple act of breathing, something we do approximately 20,000 times each day without conscious thought. The Zen masters recognized that within each breath lies a complete teaching about the nature of existence itself. The inhalation represents our capacity to receive life, to open ourselves to the nourishment that is constantly available to us. The brief pause at the top of the breath reflects the moment of fullness, the recognition of our interconnection with all that surrounds us. The exhalation embodies our ability to release what is no longer needed, to let go with grace and trust, and the pause at the bottom of the breath touches the space of emptiness from which all new possibilities arise. When we learn to breathe with this level of awareness, each breath becomes a meditation, a return to the present moment, and a reminder of our participation in the larger web of life. The Zen masters taught that conscious breathing alone could transform our entire relationship with our physical being, creating a foundation of calm presence from which all other healing practices naturally emerge. As we embark on this journey together, we will explore how to cultivate the art of deep listening to our bodies, learning to recognize the subtle communications that flow beneath the surface of our everyday awareness. We will discover how pain and discomfort, rather than being enemies to be defeated, can become sacred messengers, carrying important information about our deeper needs and the pathways to genuine healing. The mind-body connection through Buddhist eyes reveals itself as something far more intimate and immediate than the clinical understanding we often encounter in modern medicine. While contemporary science has begun to recognize the profound ways in which mental and emotional states affect physical health, the Buddhist tradition has always understood this connection as fundamental to the nature of existence itself. The Zen masters speak of this unity not as a theory to be understood intellectually, but as a living reality to be experienced directly through mindful attention and compassionate awareness. In the Buddhist worldview, consciousness is not something that exists separately from the body, looking down upon it from some distant vantage point. Instead, consciousness is understood to be intimately woven through every aspect of our physical being, expressing itself through the intricate dance of breath, circulation, digestion, and all the countless processes that sustain life. This understanding invites us to recognize that healing is not something we do to our bodies, but rather something we participate in through conscious collaboration with the innate wisdom that already exists within us. The Zen masters taught that this collaboration begins with what they called sacred attention, a quality of awareness that honors our physical experience as a manifestation of the divine intelligence that creates and sustains all life. Sacred attention is neither the detached observation of a scientist studying a specimen, nor the anxious monitoring of someone afraid of what they might discover. Instead, it is the loving presence of a devoted friend, interested in understanding and supporting whatever is arising in each moment. When we bring sacred attention to our physical experience, we begin to notice the constant miracle of our embodied existence, the intricate coordination required for us to walk across a room, the precise chemical processes that transform our food into energy, the immune system's remarkable ability to distinguish between what belongs to us and what might cause harm. All reveal themselves as expressions of an intelligence far beyond anything our conscious minds could orchestrate. The Zen masters observed that most human suffering arises from a fundamental disconnection from this natural unity. When we live as if the mind and body were separate entities, often at odds with each other, we create internal conflict that manifests as stress, tension, illness, and a general sense of dis-ease. However, when we begin to recognize and honor the seamless connection between our mental and physical experiences, we discover access to healing resources that have been available to us all along. This disconnection often begins in childhood, when we learn to prioritize mental achievement over physical awareness, to push through fatigue and discomfort in pursuit of external goals, to ignore our body's signals in favor of social expectations or family demands. Over time, this pattern of disconnection becomes so habitual that we lose touch with our body's natural wisdom, relying instead on external authorities to tell us what we need for health and well-being. The Zen masters understood that reconnecting with our body's intelligence requires a process of patient re-education, learning to trust sensations and impulses that we may have been ignoring for years or even decades. This process cannot be rushed or forced, but must unfold gradually as we develop the capacity to remain present with whatever we discover, even when it challenges our preconceptions about ourselves or our lives. This recognition begins with developing what the Zen masters called mindful awareness of the body. This is not the kind of awareness that judges, analyzes, or tries to fix what it finds, but rather a gentle, accepting presence that simply witnesses what is happening in each moment. Through this quality of attention, we begin to notice the constant communication that flows between our thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. We discover that anxiety creates tension in the shoulders, that sadness settles in the chest, that joy expands through the entire being, and that peace manifests as a deep relaxation that touches every cell. The Zen masters also taught that this awareness reveals the profound interconnection between our individual well-being and the health of our relationships, our work, our environment, and our spiritual life. When we pay careful attention to our physical responses throughout the day, we begin to notice how certain people, places, activities, and thoughts either enhance our vitality or drain our energy. This awareness becomes a compass, guiding us toward choices and relationships that support our overall well-being. As we develop this awareness, we also begin to recognize that the influence flows in both directions. Just as our mental and emotional states affect our physical experience, our physical state profoundly influences our mental and emotional well-being. The Zen masters understood that by working skillfully with the body through breath, posture, and movement, we could directly influence the quality of our mental experience. This understanding forms the foundation for many of the healing practices we will explore together. Consider how a simple change in posture can immediately affect our emotional state. When we slump forward with rounded shoulders and collapsed chest, we often feel defeated, depressed, or overwhelmed. When we straighten our spine, open our chest, and lift our head, we frequently experience a corresponding shift toward confidence, alertness, and optimism. The Zen masters recognized that these physical changes are not merely symbolic gestures, but direct interventions in the flow of energy and consciousness through our being. Similarly, the quality of our breathing directly affects our mental and emotional state. Shallow, rapid breathing often accompanies and reinforces anxiety, while slow, deep breathing naturally promotes calm and centeredness. The Zen masters developed elaborate practices around conscious breathing, recognizing that by learning to work skillfully with our breath, we could influence every aspect of our experience. The Buddhist approach to the mind-body connection also emphasizes the importance of understanding the impermanent nature of all physical experience. The Zen masters taught that much of our suffering around physical discomfort comes from our resistance to the natural flow of change that characterizes all bodily experience. When we learn to work with this flow rather than against it, we discover that even challenging physical experiences can become doorways to greater freedom and understanding. This understanding of impermanence applies not only to dramatic changes like illness and recovery, but to the constant subtle fluctuations that characterize every moment of our physical existence. Our energy levels naturally ebb and flow throughout the day. Our body temperature adjusts to environmental conditions. Our muscle tension responds to our emotional state, and our overall sense of well-being shifts in response to countless internal and external factors. The Zen masters taught that learning to dance with these natural rhythms, rather than trying to control or override them, is essential for maintaining health and vitality throughout our lives. This perspective invites us to develop a fundamentally different relationship with physical pain and discomfort. Rather than seeing these experiences as problems to be eliminated as quickly as possible, we learn to approach them with curiosity and compassion, recognizing that they often carry important messages about imbalances in our lives that need attention. The Zen masters taught that when we listen deeply to these messages and respond with appropriate changes in our lifestyle, diet, stress levels, or emotional patterns, we often find that the physical symptoms naturally resolve themselves. The Zen masters also recognized that our relationship with impermanence extends beyond our individual physical experience to encompass our connection with the natural world. Just as our bodies go through cycles of energy and rest, activity and stillness, the natural world around us moves through similar rhythms of growth and dormancy, expansion and contraction. When we align our lifestyle with these larger rhythms, eating seasonal foods, adjusting our activity levels to match the available daylight, and honoring the need for rest during winter months, we often find that our bodies function with greater ease and resilience. The mind-body connection in Buddhist understanding also encompasses the recognition that our bodies are not isolated entities, but are intimately connected to the larger web of life that surrounds us. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, the sunlight that nourishes us, all become part of our physical being. This understanding expands our sense of what constitutes our body and invites us to consider how our relationship with the natural world affects our health and well-being. The Zen masters spoke of the body as a microcosm of the universe, containing within it the same principles and patterns that govern all of life. When we learn to read the language of our bodies with this understanding, we discover that our physical experience can teach us profound truths about the nature of existence itself. The rhythm of our breath mirrors the rhythm of the tides. The circulation of our blood reflects the circulation of nutrients through the ecosystem, and the cycles of rest and activity in our bodies echo the larger cycles of day and night, seasons, and cosmic time. This expanded understanding invites us to consider our health not as a private matter, but as part of our participation in the larger health of the world. When we care for our bodies with wisdom and compassion, we contribute to the healing of the collective body of humanity. When we learn to live in harmony with natural rhythms and cycles, we support the restoration of balance in our relationship with the earth itself. The Zen masters also taught that our bodies serve as bridges between the seen and unseen dimensions of existence. Through practices like meditation, conscious breathing, and mindful movement, we can access subtle energies and states of consciousness that are not normally available to our everyday awareness. These experiences often provide profound healing and insight, revealing dimensions of our being that extend far beyond our physical boundaries while remaining intimately connected to our embodied existence. This expanded understanding of the mind, body connection invites us to approach healing not as an isolated individual endeavor, but as a participation in the larger healing of the world. When we heal the disconnection between mind and body within ourselves, we contribute to healing the disconnection between humanity and nature, between thinking and feeling, between action and awareness that characterizes so much of modern life. The Zen masters also emphasized that true understanding of the mind, body connection cannot be achieved through intellectual study alone, but must be cultivated through direct experience and practice. This is why the Buddhist tradition has developed such a rich array of practices designed to help us develop intimate awareness of our embodied existence. Through meditation, mindful breathing, gentle movement, and conscious attention to daily activities like eating and walking, we gradually develop the capacity to live from this integrated awareness. These practices are not merely techniques to be learned and applied, but invitations to discover the profound wisdom that already exists within our own direct experience. The Zen masters understood that each person's journey of embodied awakening is unique, and what works for one person may not be appropriate for another. This is why they emphasized the importance of developing our own capacity for deep listening and discernment, learning to recognize what our individual body, mind system needs for optimal health and spiritual development. As we deepen our understanding of the mind, body connection through Buddhist eyes, we begin to recognize that healing is not something that happens to us, but something that we participate in through our conscious attention and intention. The body's innate capacity for healing is always present, but it flourishes when it receives the support of a mind that is present, accepting, and aligned with the natural processes of life. This participation requires us to develop what the Zen masters called the middle way approach to our physical existence, neither pushing our bodies beyond their limits in pursuit of ambitious goals, nor becoming overly protective and fearful of physical challenge. The middle way involves learning to recognize our body's actual capacity in each moment and working skillfully within those limits while remaining open to the possibility of growth and expansion. Understanding pain as a sacred messenger represents one of the most profound shifts we can make in our relationship with physical discomfort and illness. In the wisdom traditions that have guided Zen masters for generations, pain is not viewed as an enemy to be conquered or a punishment to be endured, but rather as a teacher carrying important information about the deeper needs of our being. This perspective transforms our entire approach to healing, inviting us to develop a relationship of curiosity and respect with even our most challenging physical experiences. The Zen masters understood that pain, in all its forms, arises from the fundamental intelligence of the body, attempting to communicate something essential about our current state of being. Just as physical pain alerts us to injury or imbalance that requires attention, emotional and spiritual pain often signals areas of our lives that need care, adjustment, or deeper understanding. When we learn to listen to these messages with patience and wisdom, rather than immediately seeking to silence them, we discover that pain can become one of our most reliable guides toward greater health and wholeness. This understanding requires us to fundamentally reconsider our cultural conditioning around pain and discomfort. Most of us have been taught to view pain as purely negative, something to be avoided at all costs or eliminated as quickly as possible when it arises. While this approach may be appropriate for acute injuries that require immediate medical attention, the Zen masters recognized that applying this same mentality to all forms of physical discomfort often prevents us from receiving the valuable information that our bodies are trying to share with us. Consider the difference between the sharp, urgent pain of touching a hot stove, which demands immediate action to prevent injury, and the dull ache in our shoulders after a stressful day at work, which may be inviting us to examine the sources of tension in our lives. The Zen masters taught that learning to distinguish between these different types of pain and responding to each appropriately is a crucial skill for anyone seeking to live in harmony with their body's wisdom. This approach requires us to develop what the Zen masters called discriminating awareness, the ability to distinguish between pain that serves as a helpful messenger and suffering that arises from our resistance to what we are experiencing. While pain is often unavoidable and carries valuable information, suffering is frequently optional and results from our mental and emotional reactions to our physical experience. Learning to make this distinction becomes crucial for anyone seeking to work skillfully with challenging physical conditions. The Zen masters taught that suffering often arises not from the pain itself, but from the stories we tell ourselves about what the pain means. When we experience physical discomfort, our minds often immediately leap to worst case scenarios, catastrophic interpretations, or feelings of victimization and helplessness. These mental elaborations can create far more distress than the original physical sensation, trapping us in cycles of anxiety and despair that actually interfere with our body's natural healing processes. The sacred messenger quality of pain reveals itself most clearly when we approach it with the attitude of respectful inquiry rather than immediate rejection. The Zen masters taught that every sensation in the body, no matter how uncomfortable, arises from the same fundamental life force that creates pleasure, comfort, and ease. This life force, sometimes called prana or chi in various traditions, is always seeking to maintain balance and harmony within our system. When we experience pain, this same intelligence is often attempting to draw our attention to areas where this balance has been disturbed. This perspective invites us to develop what might be called a research attitude toward our physical experience, approaching even uncomfortable sensations with the curiosity of a scientist investigating an interesting phenomenon. Instead of immediately trying to make pain go away, we might ask ourselves questions like, what is this sensation trying to tell me? What changes in my life might support the restoration of balance in this area? What does my body need right now to feel more comfortable and at ease? Consider how acute pain from an injury immediately captures our attention and motivates us to protect the affected area while healing occurs. This same protective intelligence operates in more subtle ways throughout our system, creating tension, discomfort, or fatigue to signal when we are pushing beyond our limits, ignoring our deeper needs, or living in ways that do not support our overall well-being. The Zen masters recognized that learning to read these signals with accuracy and respond to them with appropriate action is one of the most important skills we can develop for maintaining health throughout our lives. The Zen masters also observed that pain often serves as a call to presence, demanding that we slow down and pay attention to what is happening in our bodies and our lives. In our busy, distracted world, we often ignore subtle signals from our bodies until they become loud enough to capture our attention. pain can be understood as our body's way of insisting that we take time to listen, to care for ourselves, and to make any necessary adjustments to support our well-being. This understanding transforms pain from an interruption in our lives to an invitation to deeper self, care and awareness. Instead of viewing illness or injury as obstacles that prevent us from living fully, we begin to see them as opportunities to slow down, reassess our priorities, and reconnect with what truly matters to us. Many people report that periods of physical challenge, while difficult, ultimately led to positive changes in their relationships, work, spiritual practice, or overall approach to life. Chronic pain presents a more complex, but equally valuable teaching when approached with this understanding. Rather than viewing persistent discomfort as a malfunction of the body, the Zen masters encouraged us to consider what ongoing messages might be embedded within these experiences. Sometimes chronic pain signals the need for significant lifestyle changes, the resolution of emotional patterns that create ongoing stress, or the development of new approaches to managing the demands of daily life. The Zen masters recognized that chronic pain often carries information about patterns that have been present in our lives for years or even decades. Perhaps we have been pushing ourselves too hard for too long, ignoring our need for rest and renewal. Perhaps we have been carrying emotional burdens that have never been fully processed and released. Perhaps we have been living in ways that do not honor our deeper values and authentic nature. Chronic pain can serve as a persistent teacher, continuing to offer its message until we are ready to receive it and make the changes it suggests. Working with chronic pain as a sacred messenger requires tremendous patience and self-compassion. The Zen masters taught that healing often occurs not according to our preferred timeline, but according to the deeper rhythms of our body, mind system. This means learning to find meaning and even peace within ongoing physical challenges, while remaining open to the possibility of improvement and healing. The sacred messenger perspective also invites us to recognize that pain often carries information not just about our physical condition, but about the state of our relationships, our work, our spiritual life, and our connection to the larger community around us. The Zen masters observed that humans are integrated beings, and disturbance in any dimension of our existence can manifest as physical discomfort. This understanding encourages us to approach healing holistically, considering not just the immediate physical symptoms, but the larger context of our lives. For example, persistent headaches might signal not just tension in the muscles of the head and neck, but stress in our work environment, conflict in our relationships, or spiritual disconnection that leaves us feeling unsupported and alone. Back pain might reflect not just muscular strain, but the emotional burden of feeling unsupported in our lives or carrying responsibilities that are too heavy for us to bear alone. Digestive problems might indicate not just dietary issues, but difficulty processing emotional experiences or accepting the changes that life is asking of us. Learning to receive pain as a sacred messenger requires developing the capacity to be present with discomfort without immediately trying to change or escape it. This does not mean passively accepting suffering or avoiding appropriate medical care, but rather creating space for the full experience of what is happening in our bodies before deciding how to respond. The Zen masters taught that this quality of presence often allows the deeper message within painful experiences to reveal itself naturally. This approach also involves cultivating what might be called sacred listening, quality of attention that honors the body's communications as expressions of profound intelligence rather than random occurrences to be suppressed. Sacred listening involves bringing the same reverence to our physical experience that we might bring to the words of a wise teacher or the beauty of a sunset. This shift in attitude often transforms our relationship with pain from one of adversary to one of respectful dialogue. The Zen masters taught that sacred listening requires us to approach our physical experience with what they called beginner's mind, setting aside our preconceptions about what our symptoms mean and remaining open to discovering something new. This beginner's mind allows us to notice subtle aspects of our experience that we might otherwise overlook, such as the precise location and quality of discomfort, the circumstances that make it better or worse, and the emotions and thoughts that accompany it. The Zen masters also emphasized that receiving pain as a sacred messenger requires us to develop patience with the body's timing and processes. Just as we would not expect to understand a complex teaching immediately, we may need time to fully comprehend what our physical experience is trying to communicate. This patience allows us to avoid the rushed decisions and hasty treatments that often arise from our discomfort with discomfort itself. Working with pain as a sacred messenger also involves learning to distinguish between the direct experience of physical sensation and the stories our minds create about that experience. The Zen masters observed that much of what we call pain is actually our mental and emotional reaction to sensation, rather than the sensation itself. When we learn to separate these layers of experience, we often discover that the pure physical sensation, while perhaps intense, is much more manageable than the suffering created by our thoughts about it. This distinction becomes particularly important when working with persistent or chronic conditions. The Zen masters taught that while we may not always be able to eliminate physical discomfort, we can learn to change our relationship with it in ways that dramatically reduce our overall suffering. This change in relationship often begins with recognizing the difference between what is actually happening in our bodies and the interpretations, judgments, and fears that our minds add to the experience. This understanding opens the possibility of what the Zen masters called conscious participation in our healing process. Rather than seeing ourselves as passive victims of physical discomfort, we recognize that we have the capacity to influence our experience through the quality of attention and intention we bring to it. This participation might involve adjusting our lifestyle, seeking appropriate treatment, engaging in healing practices, or simply offering our bodies the gift of patient, loving presence. The art of deep listening to your body represents the most fundamental skill in developing a healing relationship with your physical being. The Zen masters understood that the body is constantly communicating through subtle sensations, energy flows, tensions, and releases. But most of us have never learned to attune ourselves to this continuous stream of information. Developing this capacity for deep listening transforms our relationship with our physical existence from one of occasional awareness to one of ongoing intimate dialogue. Deep listening to the body begins with recognizing that every moment of our existence is accompanied by a rich tapestry of physical sensations, most of which remain below the threshold of our conscious awareness. The Zen masters taught that by learning to expand our attention to include these subtle communications, we gain access to a profound source of guidance about what our bodies need to maintain health, vitality, and balance. This guidance is always available to us, but it requires the cultivation of a quality of attention that is both relaxed and alert, both focused and spacious. The practice of deep listening involves developing what might be called somatic awareness, the ability to sense into the interior landscape of our physical being with the same clarity and detail that we bring to observing the external world. This awareness includes not just obvious sensations like pain, pleasure, heat, or cold, but also the more subtle experiences of energy flow, internal spaciousness or contraction, the quality of our breath, the rhythm of our heartbeat, and the overall sense of vitality or depletion that characterizes our moment-to-moment experience. The Zen masters taught that this interior landscape is as rich and varied as any external environment we might explore. Just as we can learn to distinguish between different types of trees in a forest, different bird songs, or different qualities of light throughout the day, we can learn to recognize the subtle variations in our internal experience. We might notice the difference between the tension that arises from physical exertion and the tension that comes from emotional stress. We might learn to distinguish between fatigue that signals the need for rest and fatigue that indicates emotional depletion or spiritual disconnection. The Zen masters emphasize that deep listening is fundamentally different from analyzing or judging our physical experience, rather than trying to figure out what sensations mean or immediately deciding whether they are good or bad. Deep listening involves simply receiving whatever is present with an attitude of open, curious attention. This quality of receptive awareness creates the space for our bodies to reveal their deeper wisdom without the interference of our preconceptions or anxieties. This receptive quality of attention requires what the Zen masters called the cultivation of inner stillness, a state of mental calm that allows us to perceive subtle sensations that might otherwise be overwhelmed by the noise of our busy minds. Just as we need quiet to hear the gentle sounds of nature, we need inner stillness to perceive the subtle communications of our bodies. This stillness is not the absence of sensation or thought, but rather a spacious awareness that can hold whatever arises without immediately reacting to it. Cultivating deep listening also requires us to slow down sufficiently to actually receive the subtle communications that our bodies are constantly offering. In our fast-paced modern lives, we often move through our days with such speed and distraction that we miss the gentle signals that might guide us toward greater health and balance. The Zen masters taught that true listening requires what they called sacred pause, moments throughout the day when we consciously shift our attention inward and simply notice what is happening in our physical being. These moments of sacred pause need not be lengthy or formal meditation sessions, though such practices certainly support the development of deep listening. Even brief moments of conscious attention to our breath, posture, or overall sense of well-being can provide valuable information about what our bodies need in any given moment. The Zen masters encourage their students to develop the habit of checking in with their physical experience regularly throughout the day, just as we might check in with a dear friend to see how they are doing. The Zen masters also taught that deep listening involves learning to receive information through all of our senses, not just the obvious physical sensations. Our bodies communicate through changes in our breathing patterns, shifts in our posture, alterations in our energy levels, and even through our dreams and sleep patterns. They speak through our appetite and food cravings, our desire for movement or stillness, our attraction to certain environments or activities, and our responses to different people and situations. Deep listening also involves learning to recognize the different languages that our bodies use to communicate. Sometimes the body speaks through sensation, drawing our attention to areas of tension, warmth, coolness, or energy flow. Sometimes it communicates through movement impulses, the subtle desire to stretch, change position, or engage in particular activities. Sometimes it speaks through breath, with changes in rhythm, depth, or quality that reflect our emotional and energetic state. Sometimes it communicates through overall feelings of vitality, fatigue, restlessness, or calm that color our entire experience. The Zen masters taught that each person's body has its own unique communication style, and part of developing deep listening involves learning to recognize and interpret our own individual patterns. Some people are naturally more sensitive to temperature changes, others to energy flows, others to muscular tension or relaxation. By paying attention to our patterns over time, we develop fluency in our body's particular language and become increasingly skilled at understanding what it is trying to tell us. This individual variation in body language means that developing deep listening is ultimately a personal journey of discovery. While we can learn general principles and practices that support somatic awareness, each of us must ultimately learn to interpret our own body's unique signals and responses. The Zen masters encouraged their students to approach this learning with patience and humility, recognizing that becoming fluent in our body's language is a lifelong process that deepens with experience and practice. Deep listening also requires us to develop trust in our body's intelligence, even when its messages conflict with our mental preferences or social expectations. The Zen masters observed that the body often knows what we need before our minds do, and learning to honor this deeper knowing can prevent many health problems and guide us toward choices that support our overall well-being. This might mean recognizing when we need rest even when we think we should be productive, or noticing when certain foods, activities, or environments drain our energy even when they are supposed to be good for us. This trust in bodily wisdom often challenges the mental dominance that characterizes much of modern life. We are accustomed to making decisions based on rational analysis, social expectations, or external authorities, often overriding or ignoring the subtle guidance that arises from our physical experience. The Zen masters taught that learning to integrate bodily wisdom with mental understanding creates a more complete and reliable foundation for making life decisions. The practice of deep listening naturally leads to what the Zen masters called responsive living, a way of being in which our actions and choices arise from ongoing attunement to our body's wisdom rather than from rigid rules or external expectations. This responsive approach to life allows us to make adjustments in our diet, exercise, work schedule, and relationships based on the real-time feedback we receive from our physical being. Such responsiveness often prevents minor imbalances from developing into more serious health problems. Responsive living might mean eating when we are genuinely hungry rather than according to clock time, resting when our energy is low rather than pushing through fatigue, or choosing activities that genuinely nourish us rather than those we think we should enjoy. This approach requires developing confidence in our own perceptions and the courage to make choices that honor our body's needs, even when they differ from conventional wisdom or social expectations. Deep listening also reveals the intimate connection between our physical sensations and our emotional and spiritual states. The Zen masters understood that the body serves as a bridge between these different dimensions of our experience, and learning to read its signals gives us valuable information about all aspects of our being. We might notice how excitement creates a sense of expansion in the chest, how sadness settles as heaviness in the heart area, how anger generates heat and tension, or how peace manifests as a deep relaxation that permeates our entire being. This awareness allows us to use our physical experience as a guide for understanding and working with our emotional and spiritual life. When we notice tension building in our shoulders, we might recognize that we are carrying stress and need to examine what is creating that stress in our lives. When we feel a sense of contraction in our chest, we might recognize that we are closing our heart to some experience and need to explore what is calling for greater acceptance or compassion. The Zen masters taught that this integration of physical, emotional, and spiritual awareness represents one of the highest achievements of human development. When we learn to read the body's signals as information about our total well-being, we gain access to a sophisticated guidance system that can help us navigate all aspects of our lives with greater wisdom and skill. The Zen masters also taught that deep listening includes attention to the spaces between sensations, the qualities of stillness, emptiness, and openness that are always present alongside our more obvious physical experiences. These spaces often carry as much information as the sensations themselves, revealing areas where energy flows freely and where our natural healing capacity is most active. Learning to attune to these spaces of wellness within our bodies provides a foundation of health and vitality that supports us even during times of illness or challenge. This attention to the spaces of wellness becomes particularly important when working with chronic conditions or persistent discomfort. Even when parts of our body are experiencing pain or dysfunction, there are always areas that remain healthy and vital. The Zen masters taught that by learning to rest our attention in these spaces of wellness, we can support our overall healing process and maintain a sense of connection to our fundamental health and wholeness. As we develop the art of deep listening, we also begin to recognize that our bodies exist within larger rhythms and cycles that influence their needs and capacities. The Zen masters were deeply attuned to the ways in which daily rhythms, seasonal changes, lunar cycles, and other natural patterns affect our physical being. Deep listening includes awareness of these larger rhythms and learning to align our lifestyle choices with the natural ebb and flow of energy that characterizes all living systems. This attunement to natural rhythms might involve recognizing that our energy naturally peaks certain times of day and adjusting our most demanding activities accordingly. It might mean noticing how seasonal changes affect our appetite, sleep patterns, and emotional state, and making appropriate adjustments to support our well-being throughout the year. It might involve paying attention to lunar cycles and how they influence our energy levels, emotional sensitivity, and need for introspection or social connection. Through consistent practice of deep listening, we gradually develop what might be called embodied wisdom, a way of knowing that arises from the integration of physical awareness, emotional intelligence, and spiritual understanding. This embodied wisdom becomes a reliable guide for making choices that support not just our physical health, but our overall well-being and spiritual development. The Zen masters understood that this integration of body wisdom with other forms of knowing represents one of the highest achievements of human development, a state of being in which we live in harmony with the deepest intelligence of life itself. This embodied wisdom expresses itself not as a set of rules or principles to be followed, but as a living sensitivity that responds appropriately to each unique situation we encounter. It allows us to know when to push forward and when to rest, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to engage and when to withdraw. This wisdom emerges naturally when we learn to trust the ongoing dialogue between our conscious awareness and the deeper intelligence that flows through our physical being. The Zen masters taught that developing deep listening to the body is not a destination we reach, but an ongoing practice that deepens throughout our lives. As we age, face different challenges, and move through various life transitions, our body's communications evolve and change. Maintaining our capacity for deep listening requires ongoing attention and practice, but it rewards us with an increasingly intimate and supportive relationship with our physical being. Through this practice, we discover that our bodies are not just the vehicles that carry us through life, but wise teachers and faithful companions on our journey toward greater health, understanding, and spiritual awakening. The ancient wisdom traditions understood that breath is the bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind, between the voluntary and involuntary aspects of our being. When we begin to work consciously with our breath, we enter into a profound dialogue with the deepest layers of our nervous system and energy body. The Zen masters taught that breath work is not merely a technique for relaxation, but a pathway to understanding the fundamental rhythms that govern all life. They observed that in each breath, we participate in the same essential exchange that sustains forests, oceans, and all living beings. The inhalation draws in not just oxygen, but the life force that connects us to every other breathing creature on Earth. The exhalation releases not just carbon dioxide, but our own contribution to the great circulation of energy that maintains the balance of our planet. In the Buddhist understanding, breath carries what is known as prana or life force energy. This energy flows through subtle channels in the body, nourishing every cell and organ, while connecting us to the larger web of life that surrounds us. When we learn to work consciously with breath, we begin to cultivate and direct this life force energy in ways that promote healing, vitality, and spiritual awakening. The practice begins with simple awareness, but can develop into sophisticated methods for transforming both physical and mental states. The Zen masters describe breath as the thread that weaves together body, mind, and spirit into a unified whole. They taught that by following this thread with patient attention, we could discover the source of our deepest wisdom and compassion. The foundation of all breathwork practice lies in developing what the Zen masters called natural breathing. Most of us breathe in ways that reflect our mental and emotional tensions, creating patterns that actually reinforce stress and disconnection from our bodies. Natural breathing involves allowing the breath to find its own rhythm and depth without forcing or controlling it. This means learning to breathe primarily through the nose, allowing the belly to expand on the inhalation and gently contract on the exhalation, and permitting natural pauses between breaths without anxiety or rushing. The nose, the Zen masters explained, is designed to filter warmth and humidify the air we breathe, while also stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system through subtle pressure changes in the nasal passages. Mouth breathing. while sometimes necessary, bypasses these natural regulatory mechanisms and can contribute to anxiety, poor sleep, and reduced oxygen absorption. To begin cultivating natural breathing, we can start by simply observing our current breathing patterns without trying to change them. Many people discover that their breath is shallow, restricted to the upper chest, or held in response to stress or concentration. Others notice that they frequently hold their breath during challenging activities or emotional states. This observation phase is crucial because it helps us understand how our breathing reflects our overall relationship with life itself. Are we holding back, pushing forward, or flowing naturally with what arises? The Zen masters taught their students to approach this observation with the curiosity of a scientist and the compassion of a loving parent, neither judging what they found nor rushing to fix it. Once we develop awareness of our current patterns, we can begin to invite our breath to deepen and slow naturally. This is not about forcing deep breaths, but rather about creating space for the breath to expand into areas of the body that may have been restricted. We might place one hand on the chest and another on the belly, noticing which hand moves more during breathing. Gradually, we can encourage more movement in the belly hand while allowing the chest hand to remain relatively still. This shift toward diaphragmatic breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting states of calm alertness that are ideal for healing and spiritual practice. The diaphragm, a large dome-shaped muscle that separates the chest from the abdomen, acts like a gentle internal massage therapist when it moves freely, stimulating the organs below it and creating subtle pressure changes that enhance circulation and lymphatic drainage. The Zen masters developed specific breathing techniques that work with different aspects of energy cultivation and healing. One fundamental practice involves extending the exhalation to be longer than the inhalation. This technique, sometimes called coherent breathing, helps to activate the body's natural relaxation response while building capacity for sustained attention and emotional regulation. We might begin by breathing in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 6, gradually extending both phases as our capacity develops. The longer exhalation sends a clear signal to the nervous system that we are safe and can afford to relax our vigilance. This is why sighing naturally occurs when we feel relief or when tension finally releases from our bodies. Another powerful technique involves breathing with visualization of energy movement through the body. As we inhale, we might imagine drawing healing energy up from the earth through our feet and legs, filling our entire torso with vitality and light. As we exhale, we can visualize this energy flowing out through our arms and hands, or down through our legs into the earth, creating a complete circuit of energy exchange with our environment. This practice helps us develop sensitivity to subtle energy while strengthening our connection to the natural world. The Zen masters taught that this visualization is not mere imagination, but a way of working with actual energetic processes that modern science is beginning to understand through research into bioelectromagnetism and the body's electrical field. The practice of retention, or holding the breath for brief periods, can be used to build energy and focus attention. However, the Zen masters emphasize that retention should always be comfortable and never forced. We might inhale naturally, hold for a count of 2 or 3, then exhale slowly and completely. The pause after exhalation can also be extended slightly, creating a natural rhythm that mirrors the cycles of expansion and contraction that govern all life. These practices help us develop greater capacity for presence and can be particularly helpful for managing anxiety or scattered mental states. During the natural pause after exhalation, many practitioners report experiencing a profound stillness that seems to connect them with the spacious awareness that underlies all mental activity. Breathwork can also be used specifically for physical healing by directing the breath to areas of the body that need attention. If we are experiencing tension in the shoulders, for example, we might breathe as if the breath is flowing directly into and out of that area. This is not just imagination, but a way of increasing circulation, awareness, and energy flow to specific regions of the body. The Zen masters understood that consciousness and breath naturally follow each other. So where we place our attention during breathing practice has real physiological effects. Modern research has confirmed that focused attention can indeed increase blood flow and neural activity in specific body regions, validating what contemplatives have known for centuries. For those dealing with chronic pain or illness, breathwork can become a powerful tool for changing our relationship with uncomfortable sensations. Rather than holding the breath or breathing shallowly in response to pain, we can learn to breathe into and around difficult sensations with compassion and acceptance. This practice often helps to soften the secondary tension that we create in response to pain, allowing the body's natural healing mechanisms to function more effectively. The Zen masters taught that pain has two components: the actual physical sensation and our mental and emotional reaction to it. While we may not be able to eliminate the physical sensation immediately, we can learn to reduce the suffering we add through resistance and fear. The cultivation of energy through breathwork extends beyond individual healing to encompass our relationships and environment. The Zen masters taught that as we develop skill in working with our own life force energy, we naturally become more sensitive to the energy of others and our surroundings. This sensitivity allows us to offer healing presence to others and to contribute to the overall harmony of any space we enter. Advanced practitioners learn to share energy through synchronized breathing with partners or groups, creating fields of coherence that support collective healing and spiritual development. When two or more people breathe together consciously, their nervous systems begin to synchronize, creating a shared state of calm awareness that amplifies the benefits for everyone involved. Regular breathwork practice gradually transforms our baseline state of being. Instead of living in chronic stress or low-level anxiety, we begin to inhabit states of calm alertness and energetic vitality more consistently. This shift affects every aspect of our lives, from our physical health and emotional resilience to our capacity for creative expression and spiritual insight. The breath becomes a constant companion and teacher, always available to help us return to center and reconnect with our deepest resources. The Zen masters often spoke of the breath as our most reliable friend, one who never abandons us and always responds to our attention with gifts of peace and clarity. The integration of breathwork with daily activities represents an advanced level of practice that the Zen masters considered essential for complete development. This means learning to maintain conscious breathing while walking, working, eating, and interacting with others. When we can sustain awareness of breath throughout our daily activities, every moment becomes an opportunity for cultivation and healing. This integration helps us avoid the common trap of compartmentalizing our spiritual practice, instead allowing it to inform and transform every aspect of our lives. The challenge is not to breathe consciously for a few minutes during formal practice, but to remember the breath as a source of wisdom and stability throughout the varied experiences of each day. One of the most profound aspects of advanced breathwork practice is learning to work with the emotional content that often arises when we begin to breathe more deeply and consciously. The Zen masters understood that the breath and emotions are intimately connected, with each emotional state having its own characteristic breathing pattern. When we begin to change our breathing, we often encounter the emotions that have been held in place by our habitual breathing patterns. This can initially feel uncomfortable or overwhelming, but it represents a natural part of the healing process. By maintaining conscious breathing in the presence of difficult emotions, we learn to feel without being overwhelmed, to experience the full spectrum of human feeling while remaining grounded in awareness. The practice of emotional regulation through breathwork involves neither suppressing difficult emotions nor being carried away by them, but rather creating a stable foundation of conscious breathing that allows us to experience emotions fully while maintaining our equilibrium. When anger arises, for example, we might notice how our breathing becomes rapid and shallow, and we can consciously slow and deepen our breath while allowing the anger to be present. This doesn't eliminate the anger immediately, but it prevents us from being completely taken over by it and allows us to respond rather than react to whatever situation triggered the emotional response. Similarly, when sadness or grief arises, we might notice a tendency to hold the breath or breathe in a restricted way. By consciously maintaining full, deep breathing in the presence of these emotions, we create space for them to move through us naturally rather than becoming stuck or suppressed. The Zen masters taught that emotions are like weather patterns in the sky of consciousness. They arise, peak, and pass away naturally when we don't interfere with their movement through resistance or grasping. Conscious breathing provides the stable sky in which these weather patterns can move without disturbing our essential peace. As we move from the foundation of breathwork into the realm of mindful movement and body awareness, we begin to understand how conscious breathing naturally leads to conscious embodiment. The Zen masters recognized that breath and movement are intimately connected, with each influencing the other in ways that can either support or hinder our overall well-being and spiritual development. They observe that when breathing is natural and free, movement becomes graceful and efficient. When breathing is restricted or forced, movement becomes tense and awkward. This understanding led them to develop practices that integrate conscious breathing with mindful movement to create optimal conditions for both physical health and spiritual awakening. The ancient traditions understood that the body is designed for movement, and that stillness without movement leads to stagnation, while movement without stillness leads to exhaustion. The art of mindful movement involves finding the dynamic balance between these complementary aspects of embodied existence. This is not simply about exercise or physical fitness, though these benefits naturally arise from mindful movement practice. Rather, it is about developing a conscious relationship with the body in motion that honors both its need for activity and its wisdom about rest and restoration. The Zen masters taught that the body possesses an innate intelligence that knows exactly how much movement and rest it needs at any given moment. But this intelligence can only be accessed when we approach the body with respectful attention rather than forcing it to conform to external expectations or schedules. Mindful movement begins with the recognition that every movement we make is an expression of consciousness. Whether we are walking across a room, reaching for an object, or performing complex physical activities, each movement carries information about our mental and emotional state, our relationship with our environment, and our overall approach to life. The Zen masters taught their students to pay attention to the quality of their movements, noticing whether they moved with grace and efficiency or with tension and struggle. They understood that how we move reflects how we live, and that by bringing consciousness to our movement, we can transform not just our physical experience, but our entire way of being in the world. The practice of walking meditation represents one of the most accessible forms of mindful movement. Unlike walking for exercise or transportation, walking meditation involves moving slowly and deliberately while maintaining full awareness of each step, the shifting of weight from foot to foot, and the coordination between breathing and movement. This practice can be done indoors in a small space or outdoors in nature, and it serves as a bridge between sitting meditation and the more complex movements of daily life. The Zen masters particularly valued walking meditation because it combines the stability and groundedness of connection with the earth with the dynamic flow of movement through space. In walking meditation, we begin by standing still and feeling our connection to the earth through our feet. We notice the distribution of weight between our feet and the subtle adjustments our body makes to maintain balance. This initial standing phase is crucial because it establishes the foundation of awareness that will support us as we begin to move. We might spend several minutes simply standing and breathing, allowing our attention to settle into our bodies and our feet to feel fully supported by the ground beneath us. The Zen masters taught that this grounding is not just physical but energetic, creating a stable base that allows us to move through the world with confidence and presence. As we begin to walk, we move slowly enough to maintain awareness of lifting each foot, moving it forward, and placing it down again. The coordination between breathing and stepping can be natural and unforced, or we might experiment with specific ratios, such as taking 3 steps for each inhalation and 3 steps for each exhalation. The key is to find a rhythm that feels sustainable and allows us to maintain continuous awareness of both breath and movement. Some practitioners find it helpful to focus primarily on the sensations in their feet and legs, while others prefer to maintain awareness of their entire body as it moves through space. The Zen masters emphasized that walking meditation is not about reaching a destination, but about being fully present with the process of movement itself. This shift in perspective transforms walking from a mundane activity into a profound practice of embodied awareness. As we develop skill in walking meditation, we can begin to bring the same quality of attention to all our movements throughout the day, creating a continuous practice of mindful embodiment. This might mean paying attention to how we stand up from a chair, how we open doors, or how we move our hands while preparing food. Each movement becomes an opportunity to practice presence and to deepen our connection with our physical existence. Traditional movement practices such as Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga represent sophisticated systems for cultivating body awareness while promoting physical health and spiritual development. These practices combine specific postures and movements with conscious breathing and mental focus, creating integrated experiences that address the whole person rather than just the physical body. The Zen masters often incorporated elements from these traditions into their teaching, recognizing that different approaches to mindful movement serve different temperaments and needs. They understood that while sitting meditation is invaluable for developing inner stillness and concentration, movement practices help us integrate this inner awareness with our active engagement in the world. Tai Chi, often called moving meditation, involves performing a series of slow, flowing movements that emphasize balance, coordination, and the cultivation of internal energy. The practice requires sustained attention and develops both physical stability and mental calm. Each movement in Tai Chi is designed to promote the smooth flow of energy through the body while strengthening the legs, improving flexibility, and enhancing overall coordination. The meditative quality of Tai Chi makes it particularly suitable for those who find sitting meditation challenging or who prefer to cultivate awareness through gentle physical activity. The Zen masters appreciated Tai Chi for its emphasis on yielding and flowing rather than forcing, principles that apply not just to physical movement, but to our approach to life's challenges. The philosophy underlying Tai Chi teaches us to meet force with softness, to redirect rather than resist, and to find power in relaxation rather than tension. These principles become embodied through the slow, continuous movements that require us to maintain balance while constantly shifting our weight and position. As we practice Tai Chi regularly, we begin to internalize these principles so deeply that they inform how we handle stress, conflict, and unexpected challenges in our daily lives. The practice becomes a laboratory for experimenting with different ways of responding to pressure and difficulty. Qigong encompasses a wide range of practices that combine movement, breathing, and visualization to promote health and vitality. Some forms of Qigong involve flowing movements, similar to Tai Chi, while others focus on specific postures held for extended periods or simple repetitive movements designed to stimulate particular organs or energy systems. The Zen masters appreciated Qigong for its practical approach to health maintenance and its ability to help practitioners develop sensitivity to subtle energy within their own bodies. They understood that Qigong practices could be adapted to address specific health concerns or to support particular aspects of spiritual development. One of the fundamental principles of Qigong is the cultivation of what the Chinese call Qi, the vital energy that animates all living things. Through specific movements, breathing patterns, and mental intentions, Qigong practitioners learn to sense, gather, and direct this energy for healing and spiritual purposes. The Zen masters taught that while Qi is a useful concept for understanding these practices, the most important aspect is the direct experience of increased vitality, emotional balance, and mental clarity that result from regular practice. They encourage students to approach Qigong with an experimental attitude, paying attention to how different practices affected their energy levels, mood, and overall well-being. Yoga in its traditional form represents a comprehensive system for physical, mental, and spiritual development. The physical postures, or asanas, are designed to prepare the body for meditation by releasing tension, improving circulation, and creating stability and comfort in sitting positions. However, the Zen masters emphasized that yoga is most beneficial when practiced with meditative awareness rather than as mere physical exercise. This means paying attention to the breath, maintaining present moment awareness, and approaching each posture with acceptance rather than forcing or striving. They taught that the true goal of yoga postures is not to achieve perfect alignment or maximum flexibility, but to develop a harmonious relationship between effort and ease, between stability and mobility. The practice of yoga asanas offers countless opportunities to explore the relationship between physical sensation, mental attitude, and emotional response. When we hold a challenging posture, we might notice the mind's tendency to create stories about discomfort, to compare our current experience with past experiences, or to anticipate how long we'll need to hold the position. By maintaining breath awareness and present moment attention during these challenging moments, we develop the capacity to remain centered and responsive rather than reactive when facing difficulties in other areas of our lives. The Zen masters particularly valued the way yoga practice reveals our habitual patterns of holding and releasing tension. In forward bends, we might discover how we hold stress in our lower back and hamstrings. In back bends, we might encounter emotional material related to opening our hearts and being vulnerable. In balancing poses, we learn about our relationship with stability and our fear of falling. Each category of poses offers its own teachings about how we navigate the challenges of embodied existence. The practice of mindful movement extends beyond formal systems to include everyday activities such as cooking, cleaning, gardening, and crafts. The Zen masters taught that any activity performed with full attention becomes a form of meditation and an opportunity for spiritual development. When we wash dishes with complete awareness of the temperature of the water, the texture of the soap, and the movements of our hands, the simple act of cleaning becomes a practice of presence and gratitude. This transformation of ordinary activities into opportunities for awakening is one of the most practical and accessible aspects of Zen teaching. Cooking offers particularly rich opportunities for mindful movement because it engages all our senses and requires coordination between multiple tasks. The Zen masters often used kitchen work as a training ground for developing presence, efficiency, and care. When we chop vegetables with full attention, we not only reduce the risk of injury, but also enter into a meditative state that can be deeply nourishing. The rhythm of chopping, the colors and textures of fresh ingredients, and the gradual transformation of raw materials into nourishing meals become sources of wonder and gratitude. Gardening offers particularly rich opportunities for mindful movement because it connects us directly with natural cycles and the earth itself. The physical activities of planting, weeding, watering, and harvesting can be performed with the same meditative attention we bring to formal movement practices. The Zen masters often used gardening as a teaching tool, helping students understand how patient, consistent care leads to growth and abundance, both in plants and in spiritual development. They observe that gardens teach us about the importance of proper timing, the necessity of both nurturing and pruning, and the beauty that emerges when we work in harmony with natural processes rather than trying to force outcomes. The seasonal rhythms of gardening also provide valuable lessons about the cycles of growth, maturity, decline, and renewal that characterize all aspects of life. In spring, we learn about the energy of new beginnings and the importance of preparing fertile ground for what we wish to grow. Summer teaches us about the sustained effort required to nurture what we have planted and the abundance that can result from consistent care. Autumn shows us the importance of harvesting the fruits of our efforts while also preparing for the dormant period ahead. Winter teaches us about the necessity of rest, reflection, and the trust that new growth will emerge when conditions are right. The integration of mindful movement with emotional awareness represents an advanced aspect of body-centered practice. Our emotions are not just mental phenomena, but are experienced as physical sensations and movement patterns in the body. Anger might manifest as tension in the jaw and shoulders, while sadness might be felt as heaviness in the chest and a tendency to collapse inward. By bringing mindful attention to these embodied emotional patterns, we can learn to work with difficult emotions in healthy ways rather than suppressing them or being overwhelmed by them. The Zen masters taught that emotions are forms of energy in motion, and that movement practices can help this energy flow naturally rather than becoming stuck in particular areas of the body. Movement can also be used therapeutically to help release stored emotional energy and trauma from the body. Gentle, conscious movement allows the nervous system to complete stress responses that may have been interrupted or suppressed, leading to greater emotional freedom and physical vitality. The Zen masters understood that true healing often requires allowing the body to express and release what it has been holding, and mindful movement provides a safe and conscious way to facilitate this process. This might involve allowing spontaneous movements to emerge during meditation, using dance or expressive movement to process difficult emotions, or simply paying attention to how our bodies want to move in response to different feelings. The development of body awareness through mindful movement naturally leads to improved posture and more efficient use of physical energy. As we become more conscious of how we hold and move our bodies, we begin to notice and correct patterns that create unnecessary tension or strain. This awareness helps prevent injury and reduces the chronic pain that often results from unconscious movement patterns and poor postural habits. The Zen masters taught that good posture is not about rigidly holding the body in a particular position, but about finding dynamic alignment that allows energy to flow freely while maintaining stability and ease. Advanced practitioners of mindful movement develop what might be called kinesthetic intelligence, a refined sensitivity to the body's needs and capabilities that allows for optimal performance in any physical activity. This intelligence expresses itself as knowing instinctively how much effort to apply in any situation, when to push forward and when to ease back, and how to move in ways that conserve energy while maximizing effectiveness. The Zen masters considered this embodied wisdom to be one of the fruits of consistent mindful movement practice. They observed that students who developed this kinesthetic intelligence not only moved with greater grace and efficiency, but also seemed to navigate life's challenges with similar wisdom and skill. The practice of mindful movement also enhances our capacity for presence and attention in all areas of life. When we learn to maintain awareness while moving, we develop the ability to stay centered and conscious even in the midst of complex or challenging activities. This skill is invaluable for managing stress, maintaining emotional equilibrium, and accessing our creative and intuitive capacities under pressure. The Zen masters taught that this integration of movement and awareness is essential for living a fully awakened life, as it allows us to remain connected to our deepest wisdom while actively engaging with the world around us. As our exploration of mindful movement deepens our connection to the body's wisdom, we naturally arrive at the understanding that meditation itself can become a powerful tool for physical healing. The Zen masters recognized that the mind and body are not separate entities, but different aspects of a unified whole, and that changes in consciousness directly affect physical health and vitality. They developed sophisticated meditation practices specifically designed to support healing, working with the understanding that many physical symptoms arise from or are exacerbated by mental and emotional imbalances. The foundation of meditation practice for physical healing rests on the understanding that many physical symptoms arise from or are exacerbated by mental and emotional stress. When we learn to quiet the mind and cultivate states of deep relaxation through meditation, we create optimal conditions for the body's natural healing mechanisms to function effectively. This is not about using meditation to escape from physical problems, but rather about creating the inner conditions that support the body's inherent capacity for self-repair and regeneration. The Zen masters taught that the body is constantly working to maintain health and balance, but this natural healing process can be hindered by chronic stress, negative thinking patterns, and emotional turmoil. Modern research has validated many of the healing effects that contemplatives have observed for centuries. Regular meditation practice has been shown to reduce inflammation, boost immune function, lower blood pressure, and improve pain management. These effects occur not through wishful thinking or denial of physical problems, but through measurable changes in brain activity, hormone levels, and nervous system function. The Zen masters understood these mechanisms intuitively, teaching that when the mind becomes peaceful and concentrated, the body naturally moves toward greater health and vitality. The practice of body scanning meditation represents one of the most direct approaches to using meditation for physical healing. In this practice, we systematically move our attention through different areas of the body, noticing whatever sensations are present without trying to change or fix anything. This gentle, accepting awareness often leads to natural relaxation and release of tension that we may not have been consciously aware of holding. The Zen masters taught that much of our physical discomfort arises from unconscious holding patterns that persist simply because they remain outside our awareness. When we bring kind attention to these areas, we create the possibility for natural release and healing. To practice body scanning meditation, we typically begin by lying down in a comfortable position and taking several deep, relaxing breaths. Starting with the toes of one foot, we bring our attention to this area and simply notice whatever sensations are present. We might feel warmth, coolness, tingling pressure, or perhaps no distinct sensations at all. The key is to observe without judgment and without trying to create or eliminate any particular experience. This attitude of open, accepting awareness is crucial because it allows the body's natural intelligence to operate without interference from our mental expectations or desires. Gradually, we move our attention through each part of the body in a systematic way, spending a minute or two with each area before moving on. Some practitioners prefer to move from the feet up to the head, while others begin at the head and work downward. The specific direction is less important than maintaining a consistent, gentle attention that honors whatever we discover in each area of the body. The Zen masters emphasized that this practice is not about trying to relax or heal specific areas, but about developing a loving relationship with our entire physical being. As we practice body scanning regularly, we often notice that areas of chronic tension begin to soften naturally, simply through receiving conscious attention. The Zen masters understood that much of our physical discomfort arises from unconscious holding patterns that persist because they remain outside our awareness. When we bring mindful attention to these areas, we create the possibility for natural release and healing. This process often happens gradually over weeks or months of practice. As the nervous system learns to trust that it's safe to let go of protective tension patterns that may no longer be necessary. The practice also helps us develop a more nuanced understanding of the difference between pain and suffering. Pain refers to the actual physical sensations we experience, while suffering refers to our mental and emotional reactions to those sensations. Through body scanning meditation, we learn to feel physical sensations directly without immediately adding layers of worry, resistance, or catastrophic thinking. This skill is invaluable for anyone dealing with chronic pain or illness, as it often reduces the overall burden of physical discomfort, even when the underlying condition remains unchanged. Loving kindness meditation can be specifically adapted for physical healing by directing compassionate attention toward areas of the body that are experiencing pain or illness. Rather than viewing these areas as problems to be solved, we learn to offer them the same unconditional love and acceptance we might give to a beloved friend who is suffering. This shift in attitude often has profound effects on both our experience of physical symptoms and our body's healing response. The Zen masters taught that our internal attitude toward our bodies significantly influences our physical well-being, and that approaching illness with love rather than fear or anger creates more favorable conditions for healing. The practice begins with generating feelings of love and compassion for ourselves as a whole, perhaps using phrases such as, "May I be healthy and strong," or "May I be free from suffering." Once we establish this foundation of self-compassion, we can direct these loving feelings specifically toward areas of the body that need healing. We might place our hands gently on an area of pain or illness while offering it phrases such as, "May you be healed," or "May you be at peace." The physical touch combined with loving intention creates a powerful healing environment that supports bodily natural recovery processes. This practice is not about denying the reality of physical problems or trying to cure serious illnesses through positive thinking alone. Rather, it is about creating a healing relationship with our bodies based on love and acceptance rather than fear and resistance. The Zen masters taught that this shift in attitude often allows the body's natural healing mechanisms to function more effectively, while helping us maintain emotional and spiritual well-being regardless of our physical condition. They observed that people who approached illness with compassion and acceptance often experienced less suffering and sometimes better outcomes than those who fought against their conditions with anger or despair. The practice of loving kindness toward our bodies also helps us develop gratitude for all the ways our bodies serve us, even when they are not functioning perfectly. We might offer appreciation to our hearts for beating faithfully, to our lungs for breathing automatically, to our digestive systems for processing the food we eat, or to our immune systems for protecting us from countless threats we never even notice. This attitude of gratitude creates a positive feedback loop that supports overall health and vitality, while helping us maintain perspective during times of illness or physical challenge. Visualization meditation can be used to support healing by engaging the imagination in ways that promote positive changes in the body. Research has shown that vivid mental imagery can influence immune function, pain perception, and various physiological processes, the Zen masters developed sophisticated visualization practices that combine mental imagery with breathing and energy cultivation to support both physical and spiritual development. They understood that the imagination is not separate from the body, but is intimately connected with physical processes through the nervous system and the mind-body connection. One simple but powerful visualization involves imagining healing light filling the body with each inhalation. This light might be golden, white, or any color that feels healing and nourishing. As we breathe in, we visualize this light entering through the crown of the head and flowing throughout the entire body, bringing vitality and healing to every cell. As we exhale, we might imagine any illness, pain, or negative energy leaving the body as dark smoke or simply dissolving into nothingness. This practice combines the physiological benefits of deep breathing with the psychological benefits of positive imagery, creating a comprehensive approach to healing that addresses both physical and mental aspects of health. More specific visualizations can be created for particular health conditions. Someone dealing with heart problems might visualize their heart surrounded by healing green light, beating strongly and rhythmically. A person with digestive issues might imagine their stomach and intestines filled with soothing, warm energy that promotes healthy digestion and elimination. The key is to create images that feel positive and healing rather than focusing on the details of the illness or problem. The Zen masters emphasize that visualization should focus on health and vitality rather than on the pathology or dysfunction we wish to eliminate. The Zen masters emphasized that visualization should be combined with genuine feeling and intention rather than being merely a mental exercise. This means engaging not just the visual imagination, but also cultivating actual sensations of warmth, relaxation, vitality, or whatever qualities we are trying to invoke. The more fully we can embody the visualization, the more likely it is to have beneficial effects on our physical condition. This embodied approach to visualization helps bridge the gap between mental imagery and physical reality, making the practice more than just wishful thinking. Advanced visualization practices might involve imagining the body's healing systems working optimally. We might visualize white blood cells efficiently eliminating toxins and pathogens, or imagine damaged tissues regenerating and returning to perfect health. We could visualize our nervous system functioning in perfect harmony, with all signals flowing clearly and appropriately. The Zen masters taught that these visualizations work not by magically creating immediate cures, but by aligning our conscious intention with the body's natural healing processes and by reducing the stress and negative thinking that can interfere with recovery. Meditation on the elements represents another traditional approach to healing that works with the fundamental energies that compose the physical body. In Buddhist understanding, the body is composed of earth, water, fire, and air elements, and imbalances among these elements can lead to various physical and mental difficulties. Through meditation, we can learn to sense these elemental qualities within our own bodies and work to restore balance and harmony. This approach to healing recognizes that health is not just the absence of disease, but a dynamic state of balance among all the forces that sustain life. The earth element corresponds to the solid, stable aspects of the body such as bones, muscles, and organs. When this element is balanced, we feel grounded, stable, and physically strong. Meditation on the earth element might involve visualizing our bodies as solid and stable as mountains, or feeling our connection to the earth through our sitting bones or feet. We might imagine roots extending from our bodies deep into the earth, drawing up nourishment and stability. When the earth element is deficient, we might feel ungrounded, scattered, or physically weak. When it is excessive, we might feel heavy, sluggish, or resistant to change. The water element relates to all the fluids in the body, including blood, lymph, and cellular fluids. Balanced water element creates feelings of flow, flexibility, and emotional fluidity. We might meditate on this element by visualizing healing streams of water flowing through our bodies, washing away toxins and bringing fresh vitality to every cell. We could imagine our bodies as rivers, with energy and nutrients flowing smoothly to wherever they are needed. When the water element is deficient, we might feel dry, rigid, or emotionally stuck. When it is excessive, we might feel overly emotional, scattered, or lacking in boundaries. The fire element corresponds to body temperature, metabolism, and the transformative processes of digestion and cellular renewal. When balanced, fire element creates energy, enthusiasm, and the capacity for positive change. Meditation on fire might involve visualizing a warm, golden light in the solar plexus that radiates healing energy throughout the body. We might imagine this inner fire burning away illness and negativity while generating vitality and clarity. When the fire element is deficient, we might feel cold, lethargic, or lacking in motivation. When it is excessive, we might feel overheated, agitated, or prone to inflammation. The air element relates to breathing, circulation, and the movement of energy through the body. Balanced air element creates lightness, mental clarity, and spiritual inspiration. We can work with this element through conscious breathing practices or by visualizing healing energy flowing freely through all the channels of the body. We might imagine ourselves filled with fresh, clean air that brings oxygen and vitality to every cell while carrying away waste products and stagnant energy. When the air element is deficient, we might feel heavy, mentally dull, or spiritually disconnected. When it is excessive, we might feel anxious, scattered, or ungrounded. Advanced meditation practitioners learn to work directly with what the Zen masters called the subtle body, the network of energy channels and centers that underlies physical health and vitality. This subtle body includes what are known as chakras or energy centers, as well as the meridians or energy pathways that are mapped in traditional Chinese medicine. Through meditation, we can learn to sense and work with these subtle energies to promote healing and spiritual development. While this approach might seem esoteric, it is based on the understanding that consciousness and energy are intimately connected, and that changes in our energetic state directly affect our physical condition. The practice of chakra meditation involves bringing attention to the 7 main energy centers that run along the spine from the base to the crown of the head. Each chakra is associated with particular physical organs, emotional qualities, and spiritual capacities. By meditating on these centers, we can help to balance and harmonize the energy system that supports both physical health and psychological well-being. The Zen masters taught that when the chakras are balanced and energy flows freely between them, we experience optimal health, emotional stability, and spiritual clarity. The root chakra, located at the base of the spine, relates to physical survival, grounding, and our connection to the earth. Meditation on this center might involve visualizing a red light at the base of the spine while focusing on feelings of safety, stability, and physical vitality. We might imagine this chakra as a spinning wheel of red light that connects us to the Earth's energy and provides a stable foundation for all other aspects of our being. When this chakra is balanced, we feel secure, grounded, and confident in our ability to meet our basic needs. When it is imbalanced, we might experience anxiety about survival, feel disconnected from our bodies, or struggle with issues related to money, housing, or physical safety. The sacral chakra, located below the navel, relates to creativity, sexuality, and emotional flow. We might meditate on this center using orange light while cultivating feelings of creative inspiration and emotional balance. This chakra governs our ability to experience pleasure, to form intimate relationships, and to express our creative potential. When balanced, it creates feelings of vitality, sensuality, and creative enthusiasm. When imbalanced, we might experience sexual dysfunction, creative blocks, or emotional numbness. Meditation on this chakra often involves visualizing orange light, filling the lower abdomen while affirming our right to feel pleasure and express our creative nature. The solar plexus chakra, located above the navel, relates to personal power, digestion, and the transformation of energy. Yellow light visualization, combined with affirmations of personal strength and confidence, can help balance this center. This chakra governs our sense of personal identity, our ability to make decisions, and our capacity to transform challenges into opportunities for growth. When balanced, it creates feelings of confidence, clarity, and personal empowerment. When imbalanced, we might struggle with low self-esteem, difficulty making decisions, or problems with digestion and metabolism. The heart chakra, located in the center of the chest, relates to love, compassion, and connection with others. Green or pink light visualization, while cultivating feelings of unconditional love, supports the health of this vital center. This chakra governs our ability to give and receive love, to feel compassion for ourselves and others, and to experience our connection to all life. When balanced, it creates feelings of love, joy, and inner peace. When imbalanced, we might experience loneliness, difficulty in relationships, or physical problems with the heart and lungs. Meditation on the heart chakra often involves breathing into the chest area while generating feelings of love and gratitude. The throat chakra relates to communication, self-expression, and the manifestation of our inner truth. Blue light meditation, while focusing on clear, authentic communication, helps balance this center. This chakra governs our ability to speak our truth, to express our creativity through words and sound, and to listen deeply to others. When balanced, it creates clear communication, authentic self-expression, and the ability to manifest our intentions through speech and action. When imbalanced, we might experience difficulty expressing ourselves, fear of speaking in public, or physical problems with the throat, neck, and shoulders. The third eye chakra, located between the eyebrows, relates to intuition, wisdom, and spiritual insight. Indigo light visualization, while cultivating inner knowing, supports the development of this center. This chakra governs our ability to see beyond the surface of things, to access intuitive wisdom, and to perceive the deeper patterns that connect all phenomena. When balanced, it creates clear perception, spiritual insight, and the ability to trust our inner guidance. When imbalanced, we might experience confusion, lack of direction, or difficulty accessing our intuitive capacities. The crown chakra, located at the top of the head, relates to spiritual connection, universal consciousness, and transcendence of individual limitations. Violet or white light meditation, while opening to divine guidance and universal love, supports the flowering of this highest center. This chakra governs our connection to the divine, our understanding of our place in the larger cosmos, and our ability to experience states of unity and transcendence. When balanced, it creates feelings of spiritual connection, inner peace, and understanding of life's deeper meaning. When imbalanced, we might feel spiritually disconnected, confused about life's purpose, or overly attached to material concerns. Regular meditation practice gradually transforms our relationship with physical discomfort and illness. Instead of being overwhelmed by symptoms or fighting against them, we learn to meet physical challenges with equanimity and wisdom. This does not mean becoming passive or neglecting appropriate medical care, but rather approaching health challenges from a place of inner stability and spiritual maturity. The Zen masters taught that illness can become a teacher, showing us where we need to develop greater acceptance, patience, or understanding. They observed that people who approached physical challenges with this attitude often experienced less suffering and sometimes better outcomes than those who fought against their conditions with fear or anger. The Zen masters taught that meditation for physical healing is most effective when it is part of a comprehensive approach that includes proper nutrition, adequate rest, appropriate exercise, and when necessary, conventional medical treatment. Meditation supports and enhances other healing modalities rather than replacing them. The inner peace and clarity that arise from regular meditation practice help us make wise decisions about our health care and maintain hope and resilience in the face of physical challenges. This integrated approach recognizes that healing involves the whole person, not just the physical symptoms, and that lasting health requires attention to mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being as well as physical care. As we develop skill in using meditation for physical healing, we often discover that our capacity to help others heal also increases. The Zen masters understood that as we learn to cultivate healing states of consciousness within ourselves, we naturally begin to radiate these qualities into our environment. This is not about trying to heal others directly, but rather about maintaining such a strong field of peace and compassion that others feel supported in accessing their own healing capacities. This healing presence emerges naturally from our own practice and cannot be forced or manufactured through technique alone. The ultimate goal of meditation practice for physical healing is not simply the absence of symptoms, but the development of a wise and compassionate relationship with our embodied existence. Through consistent practice, we learn to see our bodies not as burdens or obstacles to spiritual development, but as sacred vessels that support our journey toward greater understanding, love, and service to all life. This transformation in perspective often brings profound healing on all levels, regardless of our specific physical condition, because it aligns us with the deepest sources of peace and wisdom that are always available within us. The journey of creating sacred healing rituals begins with understanding that every moment of conscious attention to our well-being is itself a sacred act. The Zen masters taught that healing is not something we do occasionally when we feel unwell, but rather a continuous way of living that honors the profound interconnection between our physical bodies, our mental states, our emotional landscapes, and our spiritual essence. When we approach healing as a sacred practice, we transform routine activities into opportunities for deep communion with the wisdom that flows through all of life. This understanding requires us to fundamentally shift our perspective from viewing health as the absence of disease to recognizing wellness as the presence of vitality, joy, and harmonious function on all levels of our being. The Zen masters observed that true healing encompasses not just the relief of physical symptoms, but the restoration of our natural capacity for peace, creativity, and loving connection with ourselves and others. They understood that when we address only the physical aspects of illness, while ignoring the emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions, our healing remains incomplete and temporary. Sacred healing rituals serve as containers for our intention to live in harmony with our deepest nature. These rituals need not be elaborate or time-consuming. The Zen masters emphasized that the most powerful healing practices are often the simplest ones, performed with complete presence and genuine reverence for the miracle of embodied existence. A sacred healing ritual might be as simple as taking 3 conscious breaths upon waking, setting an intention to honor our body throughout the day, or spending a few moments in gratitude before meals, acknowledging the countless beings and processes that have made our nourishment possible. The power of these simple rituals lies not in their complexity, but in the quality of attention and intention we bring to them. When we perform even the most basic healing practice with complete presence and sincere reverence, we create a sacred space within ourselves that becomes a refuge from the chaos and stress of ordinary life. This inner sanctuary becomes a source of strength and wisdom that we can access throughout the day, helping us maintain our connection to peace and well-being even in challenging circumstances. The Zen masters taught that the effectiveness of any healing ritual depends primarily on our capacity to be fully present during the practice. When our minds are scattered or distracted, even the most sophisticated healing techniques lose much of their power. Conversely, when we bring complete attention and genuine care to simple practices like conscious breathing or mindful movement, these basic activities become gateways to profound healing and transformation. The foundation of any sacred healing ritual is the cultivation of sacred space, both within ourselves and in our physical environment. Sacred space is not dependent on having a special room or expensive items, but rather on our capacity to bring reverence and mindfulness to whatever space we occupy. The Zen masters taught that we create sacred space through our attitude and attention, transforming any location into a temple of healing simply by approaching it with respect, gratitude, and openness to the profound mystery of life itself. This understanding liberates us from the belief that we need perfect conditions or special equipment in order to engage in meaningful healing practice. Whether we are sitting in a crowded airport, lying in a hospital bed, or walking through a busy city street, we can create sacred space simply by shifting our internal orientation from distraction to presence, from anxiety to gratitude, from resistance to acceptance. The Zen masters understood that our capacity to find peace and healing in any circumstance is one of the most valuable skills we can develop. Creating sacred space begins with establishing clear boundaries between our healing practice and the ordinary activities of daily life. This might involve lighting a candle, ringing a small bell, or simply taking a moment to consciously transition from everyday awareness into a more receptive and reverent state of mind. The Zen masters understood that these transitional actions help signal to our unconscious mind that we are entering a different quality of time and space, one dedicated to healing and spiritual communion. These transitional rituals serve multiple important functions in our healing practice. They help us shift from the analytical, problem-solving mode of consciousness that dominates most of our daily activities into a more receptive, intuitive state that is more conducive to healing. They create a sense of ceremony and importance around our healing practice, reminding us that we are engaging in something sacred and meaningful, rather than just another task on our to-do list. And they help establish consistency in our practice by creating familiar cues that help our body and mind recognize when it is time to enter healing mode. The physical elements we choose to include in our sacred healing space should reflect our personal connection to healing and wholeness. Some practitioners find that natural elements like stones, plants, or water help them feel more connected to the healing forces of nature. Others prefer simple objects that remind them of their spiritual aspirations, such as images of inspiring teachers, sacred texts, or symbols that represent their understanding of ultimate reality. The Zen masters taught that the most important element in any sacred space is our own sincere intention to use that space for healing and awakening. The selection of objects for our healing space becomes an opportunity to reflect on what truly supports our sense of connection to healing and wholeness, rather than filling our space with items because they look spiritual or because others have recommended them. We can choose objects that genuinely resonate with our heart and help us feel more connected to our healing intention. This might include photographs of loved ones who inspire us, stones or shells collected from meaningful places, or simple items that remind us of moments when we felt particularly peaceful or whole. The Zen masters emphasized that the power of sacred objects lies not in the objects themselves, but in the intention and meaning we invest in them. A simple candle can become a powerful focal point for healing meditation when we consistently use it to represent our commitment to bringing light into areas of darkness or confusion in our lives. A small bell can become a sacred tool for calling our attention back to the present moment when we ring it with genuine intention and listen to its sound with complete presence. Establishing a regular rhythm for our healing rituals helps create momentum and depth in our practice. The Zen masters emphasized that consistency is more important than duration when it comes to establishing sacred healing practices. It is better to spend 5 minutes each day in conscious communion with our healing intention than to practice for an hour once a week. Regular practice creates a cumulative effect, gradually transforming our entire relationship with health and healing from one of crisis management to one of ongoing cultivation and maintenance. This principle of consistency over intensity reflects the Zen understanding that transformation happens gradually through sustained attention rather than through dramatic interventions. Just as a river slowly carves a canyon through solid rock through the persistent flow of water over time, our healing practices gradually reshape our consciousness and physical well-being through consistent daily attention. The Zen masters observed that students who maintained simple practices over long periods often experienced more profound transformation than those who engaged in intensive practices sporadically. The rhythm of our healing practice should align with our natural energy cycles and life circumstances rather than following rigid external schedules. Some people naturally feel most receptive to healing practice in the early morning when their minds are clear and the world is quiet. Others find that evening practice helps them process the experiences of the day and prepare for restorative sleep. The Zen masters taught that we should experiment with different timing until we find the rhythm that feels most sustainable and nourishing for our particular constitution and lifestyle. Morning healing rituals help set the tone for the entire day, establishing our intention to live in alignment with wisdom and compassion. A morning healing ritual might begin with gentle stretching or movement to awaken the body mindfully, followed by a few minutes of conscious breathing to center the mind and heart. The Zen masters taught that beginning each day with gratitude for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve creates a foundation of joy and purpose that supports healing on all levels. The early morning hours offer a unique opportunity for healing practice because our minds are naturally more quiet and receptive after the rest of sleep. During this time, we are less likely to be caught up in the mental chatter and emotional reactivity that often dominate our consciousness later in the day. The Zen masters observed that insights and healing experiences that occur during morning practice often have a particularly profound and lasting impact because they are received by a mind that is clear and open. A morning healing ritual might include setting positive intentions for the day ahead, visualizing ourselves moving through our daily activities with grace and wisdom, or simply spending a few minutes in appreciation for the gift of another day of life. We might practice gentle yoga or stretching to awaken our body with kindness, or engage in walking meditation in our garden or a nearby park. The Zen masters taught that the specific activities we choose are less important than the quality of presence and intention we bring to our morning practice. During morning practice, we might spend time setting healing intentions, not just for ourselves, but for all beings who are suffering from physical pain or illness. This expansion of our healing intention beyond our personal concerns helps connect us with the universal longing for freedom from suffering and reminds us that our own healing contributes to the healing of the world. The Zen masters understood that when we hold our personal healing within the larger context of universal compassion, our practice becomes more powerful and our healing more complete. This practice of extending our healing intentions to others serves multiple important functions. It helps prevent our healing practice from becoming self-centered or narcissistic by connecting us with the larger web of interdependence that includes all beings. It cultivates compassion and empathy by regularly reminding us that suffering is a universal experience that we share with all living creatures. And it often seems to accelerate our own healing by creating positive mental states and opening our hearts to receive support and healing energy from unexpected sources. We might begin by sending healing intentions to family members or friends who are facing health challenges, gradually expanding our circle of concern to include acquaintances, strangers, and eventually all beings everywhere who are experiencing physical or emotional pain. The Zen masters taught that this practice of universal loving kindness creates a field of positive energy that benefits everyone it touches, including ourselves. Evening healing rituals provide an opportunity to review the day with compassion and to release any tension or negativity we may have accumulated. An evening healing ritual might include gentle self-massage, conscious relaxation of different parts of the body, or a practice of forgiveness for any ways we may have neglected or mistreated our physical form during the day. The Zen masters taught that ending each day with appreciation for our body's service and with forgiveness for our imperfections creates the conditions for deep healing during sleep. The evening hours offer a natural time for reflection and release, as our bodies and minds prepare for the restorative process of sleep. During this time, we can review the events of the day with gentle awareness, noticing what supported our well-being and what may have created stress or imbalance. Rather than engaging in harsh self-criticism for our mistakes or imperfections, we can practice the kind of loving understanding that supports healing and growth. An evening healing practice might include conscious breathing exercises that help activate the parasympathetic nervous system and prepare our body for deep rest. We might practice progressive muscle relaxation, consciously releasing tension from each part of our body while offering gratitude for the day's service. Or we might engage in healing visualizations, imagining our body using the hours of sleep to repair, restore, and regenerate at the cellular level. The Zen masters emphasized the importance of approaching sleep as a sacred time of healing and restoration, rather than simply a necessary interruption in our productive activities. When we honor sleep as an essential component of our healing practice, we naturally create conditions that support deeper, more restorative rest. This might involve creating a peaceful sleeping environment, avoiding stimulating activities before bedtime, or establishing rituals that help our mind and body transition from the activities of the day into the receptive state needed for healing sleep. The practice of conscious eating can become one of our most powerful healing rituals when approached with proper understanding and intention. The Zen masters taught that every meal is an opportunity to practice mindfulness, gratitude, and reverence for the interconnected web of life that sustains us. When we eat with complete presence, chewing slowly and savoring each bite, we not only improve our digestion, but also cultivate a deeper appreciation for the gift of nourishment and the countless beings who have contributed to bringing food to our table. Sacred eating involves recognizing that the quality of our consciousness while eating affects how our body receives and processes nutrition. When we eat while stressed, distracted, or emotionally upset, our digestive system cannot function optimally, and we may not receive the full benefit of even the most nutritious foods. The Zen masters emphasize that eating in a calm, grateful, and mindful state helps our body extract maximum nourishment from our food and supports the natural healing processes that occur during digestion. The practice of mindful eating begins before we even sit down to our meal. We might spend a moment appreciating the appearance, aroma, and texture of our food, recognizing the journey it has taken from seed or source to our plate. We can reflect on the farmers who grew our vegetables, the sun and rain that nourished them, the truck drivers who transported them, and the store workers who made them available to us. This recognition of interdependence helps us approach our meal with genuine gratitude, rather than taking our nourishment for granted. Before eating, we might take a moment to appreciate the colors, textures, and aromas of our food, recognizing the sun, rain, soil, and countless human hands that have brought this nourishment to us. During eating, we can practice chewing slowly and thoroughly, allowing ourselves to truly taste and enjoy each bite rather than rushing through meals while thinking about other things. After eating, we might spend a moment in gratitude for the nourishment we have received and set an intention for our body to use this food wisely for healing and service. The Zen masters taught that the act of chewing is itself a form of meditation when performed with complete attention. By chewing each bite thoroughly and savoring the flavors, textures, and sensations of our food, we naturally slow down our eating process, and allow our digestive system to function more effectively. This mindful approach to eating often leads to greater satisfaction with smaller quantities of food and helps us develop a more intuitive relationship with our body's hunger and satiety signals. The practice of eating in silence, even for just the first few minutes of a meal, can deepen our connection to the meditative aspects of nourishment. When we eat without the distraction of conversation, television, or reading, we naturally become more aware of the subtle flavors and textures of our food and more attuned to our body's responses to different types of nourishment. This heightened awareness helps us make wiser food choices and develop greater appreciation for the simple pleasure of eating. The ritual of conscious rest and sleep becomes a sacred healing practice when we approach it with proper understanding of sleep's role in physical and emotional restoration. The Zen masters taught that the quality of our sleep is influenced not only by our physical comfort, but also by the state of mind we bring to rest. Creating a bedtime ritual that helps us transition from the activities of the day into a peaceful, receptive state supports deeper, more restorative sleep and enhances our body's natural healing processes. Modern research has confirmed what the Zen masters understood intuitively, that sleep is not simply a passive state of unconsciousness, but an active period of healing and restoration during which our bodies repair tissues, consolidate memories, and restore optimal function to our various systems. When we approach sleep as a sacred healing practice, rather than just a biological necessity, we create conditions that support these natural restorative processes and wake up feeling more refreshed and vitalized. A sacred bedtime ritual might include gentle stretching or yoga poses that help release physical tension, followed by a few minutes of conscious breathing or meditation to quiet the mind. We might practice progressive relaxation, consciously releasing tension from each part of the body while offering gratitude for the day's service. The Zen masters understood that falling asleep with a peaceful, grateful heart creates the conditions for healing dreams and deep physical restoration during the night. The environment in which we sleep plays an important role in supporting healing rest. The Zen masters taught that our sleeping space should be kept clean, uncluttered, and free from unnecessary distractions that might disturb our rest. This might involve removing electronic devices from the bedroom, ensuring adequate darkness and quiet, and maintaining a comfortable temperature that supports deep sleep. Some practitioners find that keeping plants in their sleeping space or using natural materials for bedding helps them feel more connected to the healing forces of nature. During periods of illness or physical challenge, our healing rituals become even more important as sources of comfort, hope, and connection to our inner resources. The Zen masters taught that illness can become a profound teacher when we approach it with the right attitude, using periods of physical limitation as opportunities to deepen our spiritual practice and cultivate qualities like patience, acceptance, and compassion. Sacred healing rituals during illness help us maintain our connection to hope and meaning, even when our bodies are not functioning as we would like. The experience of illness often forces us to slow down and turn our attention inward in ways that can ultimately support our spiritual growth and self-understanding. When we are unable to maintain our usual level of activity, we may discover inner resources and capacities that we had previously overlooked. The Zen masters observed that many of their students experienced significant breakthroughs in their spiritual practice during periods of physical challenge, as the limitations imposed by illness help them develop greater patience, humility, and appreciation for the simple gifts of life. When we are ill, our healing rituals may need to be simpler and more gentle than usual, adapted to our current energy level and physical capacity. We might practice healing visualizations while resting in bed, imagining light or healing energy flowing through our body. Or we might simply focus on breathing with complete presence, using each breath as an opportunity to send love and appreciation to our body's healing efforts. The Zen masters emphasized that even the smallest acts of self-care and spiritual practice can have profound healing effects when performed with genuine love and attention. During illness, the practice of loving kindness toward our own body becomes particularly important. Rather than becoming angry or frustrated with our body for not functioning as we would like, we can practice offering it the same compassion and support we would give to a beloved friend who was suffering. This might involve speaking gently to our body, thanking it for its efforts to heal, or simply resting with complete acceptance of our current condition, rather than fighting against what is present. The practice of working with healing mantras or sacred sounds can become a powerful element in our healing rituals, using the vibrational quality of sound to promote relaxation and restoration. The Zen masters taught that certain sounds have the capacity to harmonize our energy systems and support the body's natural healing processes. We might chant traditional healing mantras, hum simple melodies, or even just focus on the sound of our own breathing as a form of sound healing. The vibration of healing sounds seems to work on multiple levels simultaneously, affecting our nervous system, our emotional state, and our spiritual connection. When we chant or hum with complete presence and healing intention, we create internal vibrations that can help release tension, promote circulation, and support the optimal functioning of our organs and systems. The Zen masters understood that sound healing works not through any magical properties of particular words or tones, but through the focused attention and healing intention we bring to the practice of conscious sound making. Simple vowel sounds like ah, o, and can be particularly effective for healing practice because they naturally resonate in different parts of the body and are easy to sustain for extended periods. The Zen masters taught that the sound ah tends to open the heart and release emotional tension. O helps to ground and center our energy, and creates vibrations in the head and chest that can be very soothing to the nervous system. We can experiment with these different sounds to discover which ones feel most healing and supportive for our current needs. The practice of toning, or making sustained vocal sounds without specific words or melodies, can be particularly powerful for releasing stored tension and emotion from the body. When we allow sounds to emerge spontaneously from deep within us, we often access and release feelings that have been held in our tissues for long periods. The Zen masters understood that this kind of sound release can be deeply cathartic and healing, helping to clear energetic blockages that may be contributing to physical symptoms or emotional imbalance. Creating seasonal healing rituals helps us stay connected to the natural rhythms that support health and vitality throughout the year. The Zen masters observed that our bodies and minds naturally go through cycles of expansion and contraction, activity and rest, just like the seasons in nature. When we align our healing practices with these natural rhythms, we work with rather than against the deeper patterns that govern all life, making our healing efforts more effective and sustainable. Spring healing rituals might focus on cleansing and renewal, supporting our body's natural tendency to release accumulated toxins and embrace new growth. This might involve gentle detoxification practices, increased physical activity as the weather warms, or setting new intentions for health and well-being as we emerge from the more inward focus of winter. The Zen masters taught that spring is an ideal time for beginning new healing practices or refreshing our commitment to existing ones, as the energy of renewal and growth that pervades nature during this season can support our own transformation efforts. Summer rituals might emphasize vitality and joy, celebrating the abundance of life energy available during the season of maximum light. This might involve spending more time outdoors, engaging in playful physical activities, or focusing our healing practice on cultivating joy and appreciation for the beauty and abundance of life. The Zen masters understood that the expansive energy of summer naturally supports practices that help us connect with our own vitality and life force. Autumn rituals might focus on gratitude and preparation, helping us gather our resources and prepare for the more inward focus of winter. This might involve harvesting the insights and growth we have experienced during the year, practicing gratitude for the lessons and blessings we have received, or preparing our body and mind for the quieter, more reflective energy of the coming winter months. The Zen masters taught that autumn is an ideal time for consolidating the gains we have made in our healing practice and preparing for deeper inner work. Winter healing rituals might emphasize rest and reflection, supporting our body's need for deeper restoration and our spirit's longing for quiet contemplation. This might involve reducing our activity level to match the natural hibernation energy of winter, spending more time in meditation or other quiet practices, or focusing on nourishing and warming practices that support our vitality during the darker months. The Zen masters understood that winter's invitation to turn inward can support profound healing and spiritual growth when we align ourselves with rather than resist this natural rhythm. The integration of healing wisdom into our daily life requires a fundamental shift in how we understand and approach the ordinary activities that make up most of our existence. The Zen masters taught that there is no separation between spiritual practice and daily life, and similarly, there is no separation between healing practice and the way we live each day. Every choice we make, from what we eat for breakfast to how we respond to stress at work, either supports or undermines our overall health and well-being. This integration begins with recognizing that healing is not something we do for 30 minutes in the morning and then forget about for the rest of the day. Rather, healing is a continuous process of making choices that support our well-being and responding to life's challenges in ways that promote rather than undermine our health. The Zen masters taught that this kind of integrated approach to healing requires us to develop a new level of self-awareness and personal responsibility for our well-being. Integrating healing wisdom into daily life begins with developing what the Zen masters called continuous mindfulness, the capacity to remain present and aware throughout all of our activities, rather than just during formal meditation or healing practices. This continuous awareness allows us to notice the subtle signals our body sends us throughout the day, helping us make moment-to-moment adjustments that support our health and prevent small problems from becoming larger ones. This continuous mindfulness involves learning to listen to our body's wisdom with the same attention we might give to a trusted friend or advisor. Our body is constantly providing us with information about what supports our well-being and what creates stress or imbalance. But most of us have learned to ignore or override these subtle signals in favor of external demands and expectations. The Zen masters taught that relearning to trust and respond to our body's wisdom is one of the most important skills we can develop for long-term health and happiness. When we live with continuous mindfulness, we naturally begin to notice patterns in our physical and emotional responses to different situations, foods, people, and environments. This self-knowledge becomes the foundation for making wise choices about how we structure our lives to support optimal health. We might notice that certain foods make us feel energetic while others make us sluggish, or that spending time in nature restores our vitality while crowded, noisy environments drain our energy. The Zen masters taught that this kind of intimate self-knowledge is more valuable than any external health advice because it is based on direct experience of our own unique constitution and needs. Developing this kind of self-knowledge requires patience and gentle persistence as we gradually learn to distinguish between the voice of our body's wisdom and the competing voices of habit, social conditioning, and emotional reactivity. The Zen masters taught that our body's wisdom speaks quietly and consistently, while the voices of habit and conditioning tend to be louder but less reliable. Learning to hear and trust the quiet voice of our body's wisdom is a skill that develops over time through consistent practice and attention. The practice of micro-meditations throughout the day helps us maintain our connection to inner peace and wisdom, even in the midst of busy schedules and challenging circumstances. A micro-meditation might be as simple as taking 3 conscious breaths before answering the phone, pausing to feel our feet on the ground while waiting in line, or spending a moment in gratitude while washing dishes. These brief moments of mindful presence help prevent the accumulation of stress and tension that can lead to physical symptoms and illness. These micro-meditations serve as reset buttons throughout our day, helping us return to a state of centeredness and clarity whenever we notice that we have become caught up in stress, anxiety, or distraction. The Zen masters taught that the cumulative effect of these brief moments of presence can be just as powerful as longer formal meditation sessions, and may be more practical for people with busy lifestyles. We can create opportunities for micro-meditations by using routine activities as mindfulness cues. Every time we wash our hands, we might take a moment to really feel the sensation of warm water and appreciate the simple pleasure of cleanliness. Every time we open a door, we might pause to set a positive intention for whatever activity we are about to engage in. Every time we hear a phone ring, we might take a conscious breath before answering. The Zen masters understood that by linking these brief moments of presence to activities we do regularly throughout the day, we can gradually transform our entire daily experience into a continuous meditation practice. The Zen masters emphasized that the quality of our relationships has a profound impact on our physical health, and that cultivating loving, supportive connections with others is an essential aspect of any comprehensive healing approach. When we feel loved, understood, and supported by others, our nervous system relaxes, our immune function improves, and our natural healing processes work more effectively. Conversely, chronic loneliness, conflict, or emotional isolation can suppress immune function and contribute to a wide range of physical health problems. Research in the field of psychoneuroimmunology has confirmed what the Zen masters understood intuitively, that our emotional and social experiences have direct effects on our physical health through complex interactions between our nervous, endocrine, and immune systems. People with strong social support networks tend to recover more quickly from illness, experience less chronic pain, and live longer than those who are socially isolated. This understanding highlights the importance of investing time and energy in developing and maintaining healthy relationships as part of our overall healing strategy. Integrating healing wisdom into our relationships involves learning to communicate our needs clearly and compassionately, setting appropriate boundaries to protect our energy and well-being, and offering the same kind of loving attention to others that we are learning to give ourselves. The Zen masters taught that as we become more skilled at listening to our own body's wisdom, we also become more sensitive to the needs and feelings of others, naturally developing greater empathy and compassion in our interactions. The practice of deep listening becomes particularly important in creating healing relationships. When we listen to others with complete presence and without the agenda of fixing, advising, or changing them, we create a space of acceptance and understanding that can be profoundly healing for both parties. The Zen masters taught that this kind of presence is one of the greatest gifts we can offer to others, and that the act of offering such presence also benefits our own emotional and spiritual well-being. Learning to set healthy boundaries in our relationships is another crucial aspect of integrating healing wisdom into our social interactions. This might involve saying no to requests that would drain our energy or compromise our well-being, limiting our exposure to people who consistently create drama or negativity, or asking for the support we need rather than trying to handle everything alone. The Zen masters taught that setting boundaries is not selfish, but is actually an expression of self-respect that ultimately benefits everyone involved by helping us show up more fully and authentically in our relationships. The practice of conscious work involves bringing mindful attention and healing intention to whatever activities we engage in to earn our livelihood. The Zen masters taught that work can become a form of spiritual practice when we approach it with the right understanding and attitude. Rather than viewing work as something we must endure in order to pay our bills, we can see our work as an opportunity to serve others, develop our skills and character, and contribute to the well-being of our community and world. This transformation in our relationship with work often begins with recognizing that the quality of consciousness we bring to our work activities is more important than the specific nature of the work itself. A person who approaches even mundane tasks with mindfulness, care, and positive intention can experience their work as meaningful and fulfilling, while someone who approaches even prestigious work with resentment, distraction, or negative attitude will likely find their work draining and unsatisfying. When we work with conscious intention and mindful presence, even routine tasks can become opportunities for meditation and healing. We might practice maintaining good posture and breathing consciously while sitting at a computer, take regular breaks to stretch and move our body, or use transition times between activities as opportunities for brief moments of meditation or gratitude. The Zen masters understood that bringing healing awareness to our work not only benefits our own health, but also creates a more positive and supportive environment for our colleagues and customers. The integration of movement and physical activity into our work routine becomes particularly important for those whose jobs involve long periods of sitting or repetitive motions. The Zen masters taught that our bodies are designed for movement and that prolonged periods of physical inactivity can lead to stagnation and imbalance in our energy systems. We can counteract these effects by incorporating regular movement breaks into our workday, practicing desk stretches, or even doing simple breathing exercises that help maintain our vitality and focus. Creating rituals around the beginning and end of our workday can help us maintain appropriate boundaries between our work life and personal life, preventing work stress from contaminating our home environment and personal relationships. We might spend a few minutes in meditation or intention setting before beginning work, helping us approach our tasks with clarity and positive purpose. At the end of the workday, we might engage in a brief ritual of gratitude for the opportunity to contribute our skills and energy, followed by a conscious transition into our personal time. The integration of healing wisdom into our financial relationship involves developing a healthy and balanced approach to money that supports rather than undermines our overall well-being. The Zen masters taught that chronic worry about money, excessive attachment to material possessions, or the stress of living beyond our means can have serious negative effects on physical health. Learning to live simply within our means and with gratitude for what we have creates a foundation of security and peace that supports healing on all levels. This does not mean we should ignore practical financial planning or avoid taking reasonable steps to secure our future. Rather, it means approaching financial matters with the same mindfulness and wisdom we bring to other aspects of our healing practice. We might practice gratitude for the abundance we already have, make financial decisions based on our genuine needs rather than our fears or desires for status, and remember that our true security comes not from our bank account, but from our capacity to adapt, learn, and find meaning in whatever circumstances arise. The Zen masters taught that our relationship with money reflects our deeper beliefs about scarcity, abundance, self-worth, and security. When we examine our financial habits and attitudes with honest self-reflection, we often discover unconscious patterns and beliefs that may be creating stress and limiting our well-being. By bringing conscious awareness to these patterns, we can begin to make choices that align with our values and support our overall health and happiness. Practicing generosity, even in small ways, can be an important aspect of developing a healthy relationship with money and resources. When we give freely of our time, energy, or material resources, we cultivate an attitude of abundance and trust that can reduce anxiety about our own security. The Zen masters understood that generosity creates positive cycles of giving and receiving that benefit everyone involved and help us recognize our fundamental interconnection with others. The ongoing journey of self-healing requires us to embrace a long-term perspective that recognizes healing as a continuous process rather than a destination we can reach once and for all. The Zen masters taught that the goal of healing practice is not to achieve a state of perfect health that never changes, but rather to develop the wisdom, resilience, and inner resources needed to navigate the inevitable challenges and changes that are part of every human life. This long-term perspective helps us maintain hope and motivation, even when our progress seems slow or when we face setbacks in our health journey. Rather than becoming discouraged by temporary symptoms or challenges, we can see them as opportunities to deepen our practice and develop greater understanding of the complex factors that influence our well-being. The Zen masters understood that every experience, whether pleasant or unpleasant, has the potential to teach us something valuable about the nature of health, healing, and the human condition. The development of what the Zen masters called beginner's mind becomes especially important as we continue our healing journey over months and years. Beginner's mind involves approaching our practice with fresh curiosity and openness, avoiding the tendency to become mechanical or complacent in our healing routines. Even practices we have done thousands of times can reveal new insights and benefits when we approach them with genuine interest and attention. Maintaining beginner's mind also involves staying open to new approaches and perspectives on healing, recognizing that our understanding of health and wellness continues to evolve throughout our lifetime. We might discover new practices that resonate with our current needs, find teachers who offer fresh insights into familiar techniques, or develop our own unique approaches to healing based on our accumulated experience and wisdom. The Zen masters taught that one of the most important qualities to cultivate on the healing journey is patience with the natural rhythms of recovery and growth. In our fast-paced culture, we often expect immediate results from our healing efforts and become frustrated when change happens more slowly than we would like. However, genuine healing, especially healing that addresses root causes rather than just symptoms, often requires time to unfold fully. Learning to trust the timing of our healing process involves developing faith in our body's innate wisdom and capacity for restoration. Our bodies are incredibly complex systems that are constantly working to maintain balance and health, often in ways we are not consciously aware of. When we support these natural processes through our healing practices while remaining patient with their timing, we create the optimal conditions for deep and lasting transformation. The practice of celebrating small victories and incremental progress helps maintain motivation and joy on the long-term healing journey. Rather than waiting until we achieve some imagined state of perfect health before acknowledging our progress, we can learn to appreciate each step forward, no matter how small. The Zen masters understood that gratitude for progress, even modest progress, creates positive momentum that supports continued healing and growth. These celebrations might be as simple as acknowledging that we slept better last night, noticing that a chronic pain is slightly less intense, or recognizing that we handled a stressful situation with more equanimity than usual. By training ourselves to notice and appreciate these subtle improvements, we develop a more positive and encouraging relationship with our healing process, which itself contributes to better outcomes. The integration of healing wisdom into our relationships with healthcare providers becomes an important aspect of the ongoing healing journey. The Zen masters taught that the most effective healing often occurs when we combine ancient wisdom practices with modern medical knowledge, creating a comprehensive approach that addresses both symptoms and root causes. This integration requires us to be informed and engaged partners in our healthcare rather than passive recipients of treatment. Developing a collaborative relationship with healthcare providers involves clearly communicating our healing goals and the practices we are using to support our health, while remaining open to professional medical advice and treatment when appropriate. We might share information about our meditation practice, dietary changes, or stress reduction techniques with our doctors. helping them understand the full scope of our healing approach and how it might interact with any medical treatments they recommend. The Zen masters emphasized that taking responsibility for our own healing does not mean rejecting all outside help or trying to treat serious medical conditions solely through spiritual practice. Rather, it means becoming educated about our health challenges, making informed decisions about treatment options, and actively participating in our recovery process rather than simply hoping that others will fix our problems for us. This collaborative approach requires us to develop discernment about when to seek professional medical help and when to rely on our own inner healing resources. The Zen masters taught that wisdom involves knowing the limits of our own knowledge and abilities and being willing to seek appropriate help when needed. At the same time, they emphasize that no external treatment can be truly effective unless we are actively engaged in supporting our own healing through our daily choices and practices. As our healing practice matures over time, we often find that our capacity to help others on their healing journeys naturally increases. The Zen masters taught that as we develop genuine wisdom and compassion through our own healing work, we naturally begin to radiate these qualities in ways that support the healing of others. This is not about becoming a healer or teacher in any formal sense, but rather about embodying the qualities of peace, wisdom, and compassion that inspire healing in everyone we encounter. This healing presence emerges organically from the depth of our own practice and cannot be manufactured through technique or intention alone. When we have done the patient work of healing our own wounds, developing our own inner resources, and cultivating genuine compassion for our own struggles, we naturally become a source of comfort and inspiration for others who are facing similar challenges. The Zen masters understood that the ultimate fruit of healing practice is not personal health or happiness, but the capacity to serve the healing of all life. As we learn to live in harmony with our own inner healer, we become part of the larger healing that our world desperately needs. Our personal healing journey becomes a contribution to the collective healing of humanity, helping to create a world where all beings can experience the peace, health, and happiness that are their natural birthright. This service orientation transforms our healing practice from a self-centered pursuit into a sacred offering to life itself. When we understand that our own healing contributes to the healing of our families, communities, and world, our practice takes on deeper meaning and purpose. We begin to see that every moment of mindfulness, every act of self-compassion, and every step toward greater wholeness is not just beneficial for ourselves, but is actually a gift to all of existence. The ongoing journey of self-healing ultimately leads us to a profound recognition of the interconnected nature of all healing. The Zen masters taught that there is no separation between our own well-being and the well-being of all life, and that as we heal ourselves, we participate in the healing of the universe itself. This recognition brings tremendous peace and purpose to our healing journey, helping us understand that our personal struggles and victories are part of a much larger story of awakening and transformation. In this understanding, every challenge becomes an opportunity for growth. Every moment of pain becomes a doorway to compassion, and every experience of healing becomes a celebration of the infinite potential that exists within all beings. The journey of healing reveals itself to be not just about fixing what is broken, but about discovering the wholeness that was never actually damaged. the peace that was never truly disturbed, and the love that is the very essence of our being. As we continue to walk this path of healing and awakening, we do so with gratitude for the privilege of participating in the great work of healing that is happening throughout our world. We offer our practice as a humble contribution to this larger healing, trusting that our sincere efforts to live in harmony with our inner healer will ripple outward in ways we may never fully understand, touching the lives of countless beings and contributing to the emergence of a more peaceful, healthy, and compassionate world for all.